Let me first of all thank you for meeting. I happened to run across a number of your colleagues in the field, and they walked up and introduced themselves to me and talked to me about some of the individual issues of concern of the day. And I said, you know, at some point in time we probably need to sit down and talk, because I've had an opportunity over the past to talk to the Gazette and to Post and to all of the people in and around in the media, but I've never had a formal opportunity to sit down and just to talk, to get to know what you're doing, to maybe answer some questions and give you some update as to what's going on in the county, rather than the sort of hit-and-miss meetings that we see going back and forth as a result of various things that you attend and report on. And so this was designed to do that, to talk to you and to give you sort of an overview of some of the things that are happening in the county, and then respond to some of your questions. But let me first take this opportunity to say that clearly I'm delighted that the election is over. That one of the things that I'm really delighted about, and I think is quite rewarding, is the fact that we had an overwhelming victory. And that's somewhat unique in a time and in an age when people are really seriously questioning government and questioning leaders, their performance. People are, for the general part, upset, concerned about everything from the finances to the quality of life and what have you. And so to run in a county which is so well informed, people clearly are on top of the issues and concerns that impact their lives, and to run and to serve in that climate and to run for re-election and receive such an overwhelming vote of confidence, I think was quite rewarding. I think it speaks a lot to the team that we've assembled and to the things that we've responded to and worked on over the last 4 years. Clearly, no one would have wanted to have the 4 years that we've had. We've had everything from record financial challenges, worse than any time in the Great Depression, to weather calamities that you look at it and you think about, they're unusual. We had last year the 2 worst winter storms in recent memories, followed by a highly difficult summer. I told people we even had an earthquake hit in Montgomery County. So you name it, we've had it. And you add that on top of the budgetary crisis, and we've had to make some tough choices. One of the things that was a concern of mine, but something that I decided to do, that you may recall, right before the election, I think it's 4 or 5 months before the election, I decided to do something that is highly unusual, even under normal circumstances, and certainly many elected officials would probably punt on this and not aggressively go after this and resolve it. We had a fairly difficult budgetary challenge. I decided to do 2 things that were highly unusual right before an election: to cut deeply into county government across the board, to close a almost $1 billion challenge, and at the same time seek additional revenue in the timing of a fuel energy tax and a cellular telephone tax. Both of those things are generally inconsistent with the concerns and the voice that you hear from voters. And to do that right before an election, and to do that and to have the council fully adopt that, and for citizens to understand that, I think speaks well for the kind of tough decisions that we've made and the things that we've done over the last few years. Now, you probably know that one of the things that I'm disappointed about is the failure to get the ambulance fee. And many people have looked at this, and it's been one of these issues that have been quite confusing to many people. It's an easy issue to demagogue, because all you have to do is say the ambulance is not going to pick you up, or that it's going to cost you X amount of money. You could say that in 5 seconds, but it then takes you 5, 10, 15 minutes to explain the nuances of what happens, to explain to you the cost factors, and to go through that step by step before people actually get it. And to try to debate that in a hotly contested contest where there are lots of rumors going on places this at a very, very strong disadvantage. There were so many people that I met at the polls that were quite confused. Even people who wanted to vote and support the position that we had was confused. Well, if I'm in favor of it and I like it, should I vote against what they want to do, or do I vote for it? And it's just one of those issues that just simply you can't get your hands on it right away. But the important part of this are the revenue impacts. Now, some have said, wow, you've sent over, or you forwarded to the council, a very difficult budget reduction measure to close that gap. Why did you do that? Well, it's quite simple. We already have the $14 million in the budget. So this is not money we were expecting to have. This is revenue that are already in the budget based on the ambulance fee being a part of it. That's what the county voted for last spring. Now, we've anticipated that not some distant time in the future, right now, there are $14 million that we anticipated to receive from the ambulance fee right now. That is not happening. So we have to do one of two things. We either have to cut other places to make up for the loss of the $14 million we do not have, or we need additional revenue, i.e. taxes or something, to fill that. And people have said, oh, you are frightening people, you're throwing out a scare tactic, you don't have to say anything about this. Well, no, it's $14 million that's no longer there. That's a reality. Others have said, well, why don't you cut it this way? Well, I've said to the council and others, if you have a different way in which you want to make the cuts, please say so. And if you notice, no one has done so. They keep saying, well, let's move the target back. Let's wait until after new revenues. Let's wait until next year. Let's wait, whatever. The problem with that is that the longer you wait, the more difficult the challenge becomes. Because if you want to get savings, or you want to get savings, you need to start early. And each year that I've been here, we've had a savings plan to show up the differences of what we see as potential gap. Now, the problem is really much worse than what I've said, because there are $14 million in the current budget that are no longer there. And then the budget that we are proposing, the FY12 budget, there's $14 million in that we have to now calculate or find ways in which to recalibrate that. So it's really a $28 million hit. And so people have said, well, it's unnecessary on this, that, and the other, and we're going to get additional revenues that are going to come in maybe, and that way we can offset that. There is no level of revenues, there's no level of estimates that you're going to get that will cover a $28 million shortfall on top of a $145 million shortfall that we're already suffering. And so we need to stop posturing and realize the impact of what we face is that there's, between these two budgets, the current and the budget that we're now about to propose, $28 million gap on top of the $145 that we announced several weeks ago. That's a reality. And so the thing that you need to ask those people who say we don't have to do it, well, how are you going to make up the difference? What are you going to do to make up the difference? The $14 million now and the $14 million anticipated next year. That number, $14 to $17 million, is a number that continues each and every year. That's gone. And it was projected in our budgets going forward. And so that's a problem. And so what we will do between now and December is send over, as we've done in every year, a updated savings plan that will do the following. It will say, okay, we start with a challenge of 145, which is the working deficit that we had before. We have the $28 million now that has been added to that. And we will look at the revenues over the next couple of weeks and figure out as best we can what that precise adjustment will be. And we will have all of that available, and we'll send a savings plan over that, in my opinion, will actually even further cuts in December. And at that point in time, we have to make a decision. We pledged our financial stability based on having a balanced budget. We've said to Wall Street that we're going to continue to have a balanced budget. We've said to Wall Street that we're going to have a certain level of reserve. And we want to make sure that we have that. And we have to come up with answers in order to resolve that. That's very important, because you hear information about it's just a scare tactic. It's just not real. That's real. The problem is that people do not want to deal with the reality of what we face. And we need to get to that and deal with that as effectively as possible.
During the campaign, you were talking about